Welcome to Wedding Day Podcast with your hosts, Sonja Babich, CEO of Iron Diamond Media, a leading wedding resource featuring 7 localized wedding brands across the country, and Dan Riggs, photography and videography expert and founder of Summit Hill Studios. Come along as they travel from state to state to connect with the most creative and well-respected professionals in the wedding industry. Every episode will arm you with the hottest new trends, wedding day tips and details, and they'll show you all the joys of planning your perfect wedding day.
Hi everybody, this is Sonja Babich with Wedding Day Podcast. I'm sitting here with Brooke Beise of Minnesota Bride and Nebraska Wedding Day. But today we are at the beautiful Farnham in Omaha, Nebraska. I love this space, it's absolutely beautiful. But who is joining us today is James Laurent with the Joslyn Art Museum.
Yes.
And he is the events manager.
I am.
And you've been there, I believe, about...
This is my 9th year.
9th year, and you've had about 30 years of event experience, and we are just tickled that you're here with us today, so thank you.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yes, so James, how did you get to the Joslyn?
Well, it was kind of a long journey. I lived in New York City, and I was a captain at Tavern on the Green, and started working with an event planner there. And then when I moved here, I took a job with Hilton Corporation and ran the events, the social events at the DoubleTree Hotel downtown. There were many, many weekends where I had 4 weddings going on simultaneously. It was a lot, but I was there for several years. When I left corporate, I went and worked at Lords and Gardens. I was the event person there. For a short time, I had always wanted to be at the Joslyn, and that position became open. There were a lot of people who vied for it, and luckily it was me that was selected.
Yay, a little manifesting that, huh?
Yeah.
Before it happened.
That was about 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have our gala in the summer or in June or in the fall in October, November. And the particular year in 2016 when I was hired on, and I started on May 31st, and the gala was June 3rd. So, yes, at one point my boss turned to me and said, "Just keep swimming."
I say that all the time.
Famous phrase.
Yeah.
That's your famous phrase. Just keep swimming.
Yes.
Thanks,
and,
Nemo.
Yeah.
Or no, Dory.
Yeah, and it's been an amazing experience.
Oh, well, it's an amazing facility. It is a diamond of Omaha, truly in the heart of downtown. When you drive past it, it takes your breath away. And I know you're doing some major renovations that are happening too, which is super cool. What's going on there, and how long has it been waiting for people to come in?
Well, we closed in May of 22, just because we were not just adding a building, we were doing some renovations in the 2 existing buildings. The first building, the Joslyn building, as it's known now, was erected by Sarah Joslyn as a gift to Omaha as a memorial to her husband, George.
And what year was this again?
1931.
Yes.
Wow.
And
I was reading her bio. She was one of the first ladies in town to drive her own car, and
yes,
just
Cool.
this
very interesting couple, and they lived at the Joslyn Castle.
Oh, where
And,
is that?
It's 40th Street and Cummings,
Okay.
and it is a separate entity from the Joslyn.
Oh.
Sometimes we have people who come to a wedding and they come to the wrong place. Yeah, but and George did not like the fact that people called it the castle, but he had to grin and bear it because that's what people called it. Yes. So in 1931, when the building opened, it was on the registry of the 100 most important buildings in America.
Wow.
It's an Art Deco jewel, and the Empire State Building was also on that list and opened that year. Also an Art Deco building, and I've worked in both buildings. And I realized that about a month after I worked there, I kept looking at the windows in the Memorial Building and looking at the doors to the Witherspoon Concert Hall and thought, I've seen this before. And then our marketing director told me that story, and I just went, that is what it was.
The designer making a connection.
Yes.
I love that.
So in 1994, the Scott Pavilion opened, and it was built by Norman Foster, who was a very famous architect. They created the atrium at that point and connected the buildings with a glass ceiling and a western glass wall. And then this year, the Hawks Pavilion, named after Howard and Rhonda Hawks, will open on September 10th of 2024.
And how excited are you to get people back in the building?
Yes, very. We have, trudged a long road and done all these things to make this a possibility. And everyone is doing multiple things that you really never thought you'd be doing, but that you have to get done. And we did have an event this past Saturday as a thank you to the construction crew and their families and the design crew and their families, and it was great. It was so heartwarming to see people and to see parents with their children and see people walking through the galleries.
You know how many dinner discussions have been happening the last 2.5 years, like what they're working on, and to actually come celebrate all their hard work.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and for them to be so proud to point out what their part of the construction was.
Well, it's history. They're part of history with this building.
Absolutely.
It's not going to go anywhere.
No, no. So we are having on September 10th, we're having a private civic dedication, and then we open to the public at 1 p.m. that day.
Amazing. Now everything will start. Tours, coming in to see the museum, but also weddings can come back too, which is...
When is the first wedding back?
We are starting our first full wedding season next year.
Yep.
I have been doing tours in the last month and a half, and I have
it's probably
quite a
safety
few,
too.
Yes, quite a few weddings booked.
Everybody wants to be at the new hot spot.
Yes.
Especially renovations too.
Yes. And this leads me to the fact that there are a lot of people who have a visceral connection to the facility, to the building. And I did a wedding once where this young girl did a ballet recital in the Witherspoon Concert Hall when she was 12. And she told her parents, this is where I'm going to be married. And they said, okay. And
Sounds good, honey.
I planned her wedding 14 years later.
That's awesome.
And she didn't even live here at the time. She lived in Kansas and came up here.
I love that you've brought that up, because I know a lot of couples, they come home, they don't want to get married at their local wedding reception venue, etc. Everybody gets married there. But who cares? If you have the connection to a venue, and could be, I went to prom there, or like you said, a dance recital. That's the first I've ever heard that. But do it, because you just know in your heart you're filling that void, or that energy that just feels like it's your home, because you should feel kind of home on your wedding day too.
Yeah, and you should be somewhere that you're connected to. I always say to my couples, have a smaller, nicer than a big so-so. Only invite the people that you want to be there, that you have a connection to. This is not about a second job. This is about a celebration of your love and your union, and bringing your families together. My family's French Canadian. we love the emotional part of all of it. Bring it on. Where a lot of people, a lot of people who are in the event industry, they hear the word wedding, they run howling into the wind. And I'm just like, come on.
Okay, this kind of opens another can of worms of like picking your guest list. Like you said, keeping it meaningful and purposeful. I think I went through my list 3 or 4 times. You make your who you want there, and then review it again, and then the third one is like, have I talked to them in 2 years?
Yeah,
It's like you want to love everybody to be there, but sometimes it's just like you might need to cut the list down for budget or for a venue space
Exactly.
that you want to have it at.
Exactly. And, to have it be manageable and a celebration, not a circus. Because it's not worth spending all that money and not having a connection to the people who are there.
And when you have a bigger guest count too, it's a lot of more babysitting.
Yes.
That is
That's true.
Talk to us a little bit about this. Having a wedding at a historic place in general, but especially a museum, there's some more different dynamics to it, right? So what are some things that might be considerations for couples getting married at a place like a museum or a historic venue that maybe aren't at a typical venue?
Well, Joslyn is free and open to the public. I don't know if you realize this. We, it was open initially. Sarah Joslyn wanted it to be open and free to anyone who came. Several years ago, we made it our mission to raise the money to make that possible, and for it to be, going forward, always free to the public. But there is a but, because we have to be there for our guests. So we close every day at 4 o'clock. And so events can't start until 6 p.m. because we have to let people get out of the building and go through these things. And there can't be things by art installations. So there are things that need to happen.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because sometimes for photography, some artwork can't be in photos too, right? Is that kind of a...
Yes, there's proprietary images. We don't really have photos taken in our galleries. I mean, when a guest is there, they can take a photo in the gallery without a flash, but it's no staging of photos in galleries.
So when weddings are again at museums, can you request to remove some of the artwork so you can be in a certain space? Is that an extra fee? Is that, or it depends on, no. Well, that's good for people to know that.
No, I mean, the spaces are set up so it's, it's fully encompassing. The galleries are separate from the rental spaces, so you don't have to worry about that kind of interaction. And even in the spaces that people can walk through, you can't, the art is intentional and it's there in where it is for a reason.
Exactly.
So we don't really, people pretty much know that. They
Yeah.
can't say, oh, could you move that sculpture?
But today's day and age, they just think they can.
Yeah, well, it's different. It's different than going to like a hotel venue or a wedding venue, because you can be there all day and do all this and pay to be there days in advance if you want to. It's just not that way.
I think having a wedding at a museum is so cool because of the history aspect of it.
Absolutely.
But also you kind of feel a little more expensive because the art is expensive in there.
Well, I can't really talk to what the art is worth, but
it's an entertainment piece too.
yes, the thing about Joslyn is that it's not just about the art, it's about the architecture.
There he is.
The Joslyn building was built in 1931, and it's an Art Deco masterpiece. The center of the building is called the Fountain Court, and it is an original setting that has not changed since 1931.
So cool.
I have photographs from 2 days before it opened to today. And it's the same.
The stairway all the way up to the doors is just breathtaking.
Yes, that's a really iconic photo opportunity at Joslyn. I've had many weddings that will be down outside at the bottom of the stairs, the ceremony. Then they will walk up the stairs and go into the Joslyn building.
Because it opens at
and
6.
that's where and that's where the fountain court is. And it's very romantic. There's a fountain in the middle of the space, and the ceilings are 30 feet high, giant columns.
So that's the thing with museums. There's ways around it. Like if you want your ceremony on site, it may not be in the museum, but there can be some solutions like outside.
I can do a lot of things, but I don't have a weather switch. So we always have to have an indoor backup, because this is Nebraska, and wait 5 minutes and the weather could change.
Yeah, exactly.
But normally we don't really have issues that way. I just assure the bride that you have to be okay with being inside at the last minute.
And again, that always goes with any venue. It's always good to know what the plan B is and the plan C.
Exactly.
And at the Joslyn, they're all amazing options. So
Yeah.
there you go.
And so the second building is called the Scott Pavilion, and they created the atrium, and that's the largest space in the museum. You can have a wedding of up to 300 people. And with each wedding rental, you get 1 hour of gallery viewing during the cocktail hour in the galleries that are closest to your location. So in the Joslyn building, it is the European galleries or the North American galleries. In the Scott building, it's the contemporary galleries, 20th century art. And then in the Hawks Pavilion, it is the Philip G. Schrager galleries. And the Hawks Pavilion is 42,000 square feet. So it was a very large addition.
Huge.
Yes. The entry atrium is when you first walk into the space, and that is a rentable space. It's full of light, windows. You can actually stand in the middle of the entry atrium and see both other buildings at the same time. Wow. And there's this beautiful staircase that winds up to the overlook, which is the second floor, and it's quite the moment.
Like all these details.
Yes.
It's just, that's what you get with booking a museum.
Yes. And the other thing is, because there's so much architecture and beauty, that the art is built in.
Yeah. Yes.
You don't need a lot of decor.
Yeah.
And it's not required.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of the spaces are expansive. And
Sometimes less is more.
yes. It's not like making a box into, something. It's already made.
Yeah.
I'm sure designers that come in for weddings, they're like, okay, how can I create the vision of the couple with the museum? And usually, I'm sure it comes out like a masterpiece, because they want to kind of highlight the space too, which is why they pick the venue.
Yes. Yeah, and photographers especially, their eyes get large.
Yeah.
Yes, it might be good for the photographer to scope it out before the day of.
Yeah, because there's a lot of places to be. The wedding couple can do their first look in the afternoon of their wedding, and they can be in the public spaces. Being out on the memorial steps, which are called the grand steps now, is an iconic vision at Joslyn. Now the steps in the Hawks Pavilion are also an iconic place.
Yeah.
And the overlook, which is the second floor, leads straight to the bridge over the cafe atrium. And so you can see from one side of the building all the way to the other.
You know, just Omaha in general, just flying into the Omaha airport and literally probably 10-minute drive from the airport to the museum, not even. Not even. And then all the hotels that are available, like the Farnham. It's just like, it's so easy to have a wedding here if you want to even be a destination. It's very convenient, but beautiful.
Yes.
And clean.
Yeah.
It's really clean here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My typical couple would be a woman who grew up here, but now lives in New York City and is an attorney. And her fiance she met in the East Coast. They come here for a visit with their family, and then they come to the Joslyn, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, that they can have a wedding in Omaha for a fraction of what it would cost on
And
the
still
coast.
feel like the caliber of high-end and
Yes.
trendiness.
Absolutely.
It is just, I speak volumes about this area just because
Yeah.
it's, look where we're sitting right now. It's just
Yes.
bougie.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, it's pretty nice.
It is nice.
Pretty
But
nice.
of course, when it comes to the Joslyn, it's just historic. And also, again, we always say weddings are an experience.
Yes.
And being at the Joslyn, a historic venue, is an experience.
And it can be welcoming and not daunting. You know, it's certainly not cold.
No, it
you
looks
know.
fresh.
It's a warming environment, and now
And the
with-
outdoor surrounding the Joslyn is
Yes.
also so warming and
Yes,
inviting.
our entire campus is being reimagined, and they're going to native plantings. The Snow Hedda is the architecture firm that designed the Hawks Pavilion, and they have a landscape architect on their staff, and she designed the way that the entire campus looks, and it's all native plants and beautiful sculptures. So it's definitely a must-see. I know that on September 11th, we will be,
The day after
September
the opening.
10th,
Yeah.
and from then on, especially the next weekend, we will be very, very busy.
Which is fall in the
we're
Midwest.
Yeah, exactly.
we're really happy that that is the case.
Yes.
What is the catering situation there?
We actually have 5 caterers
Okay.
on our preferred caterers list.
Okay.
And I can name them for you. It's
need.
Abraham Catering, Attitude on Food, Catering Creations, Clean Slate, which is also our cafe partner, and Heirloom Fine Foods.
Cool. So they have some options that are great
Absolutely.
and trusted.
Yeah.
And each one are very good at specific things. And I try to steer my couples to the right one.
Yeah.
But to make it a fair thing, I give all the caterers the leads of weddings that are booked.
Yep.
And they can, contact the people.
And that just shows like museums don't have kitchens. So yes,
No.
so most museums you need to bring an outside catering in.
Yes, we
Yes.
are not in the food business. We are in the art business.
Yeah.
And the caterers that we have on staff are the best of the best.
So some of those real life weddings that you've experienced, I know there was a couple that stood out to you. Tell us more about those weddings that happened at the Joslyn.
Well, people have a visceral connection to the building. When I'm talking to someone and I tell them that I'm the event manager at Joslyn, they tell me a story of how they're connected, or when they first went to Joslyn, or a lot of things. And this one couple in particular was a young woman, I think she was 25, who told me she was in a ballet recital in the Witherspoon Concert Hall when she was 12. And after the recital, she told her parents, "This is where I'm getting married."
Okay.
And the parents said, "Oh, okay,
Sure.
yeah,
honey.
sure." And, 15 years later or 13 years later, she got married at the Joslyn.
Yeah.
And they didn't even live in Omaha anymore. They lived in Kansas.
Oh, interesting.
And she got married in the Joslyn.
Yeah.
And that's just one of quite a few stories of people that have a connection to the building and want that connection to last their entire life.
Yes.
And it does.
Yeah. So, final question. When you have weddings on the property, what is your most memory or your favorite part of the day when a wedding is celebrated at the Joslyn?
Well, I'll tell you my worst favorite.
Okay.
It's 5 minutes before it's going to start and everything is done and we're waiting for the guests to walk in the building. My most favorite is if I'm having a ceremony there, it's pointing at the bride and her father or whoever is escorting her or him. It's time to go.
Oh,
That is, to me, like the icing on the cake.
my husband too. Fluffing the dress.
Yes,
Yep.
it's like a
Go in.
culmination of
Yeah.
all this work and all these choices, and it's the end of their. By that point, they have to let go, and that's the great thing for me.
I love that.
I know. I would fluff the dress and say, "Go when you're ready."
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell them beforehand, when I point at you, that means go. Don't ask me.
Don't be
That
turning
means
back.
go.
No runaway bride today.
Yes, that means go.
That means go. Well,
Yeah.
it was so great, James, for you to sit down with us today.
Well,
and
thank you for having me.
yeah, getting
I
to
really
know
appreciate
you,
it.
your story, but also the Joslyn story too.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It's just
And-
like I
So
said,
exciting to have you here.
yeah, just
Well-
like I said, a diamond in Omaha. It truly is.
Yes, and we are looking forward to it being open and free and having all of Omaha and surrounding areas come and see the amazing things that have happened there.
Yeah, the history and the new,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So fun. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today on Wedding Day podcast. We'll see you next time. See you. Bye.